cash those checks, be professional, and shove it up Tony Khan's when you're a major star in WWE.
Right, so of things that are bugging Stevie Richards in modern wrestling, I don't know if this is bugging him, but it's something that's happened more and more these last few years that I want to bring to your attention. It is a fairly big story in the pro wrestling world in the last couple of weeks, and I can see it from both sides, but it's also hard to sympathize with someone who's making a lot of money staying at home doing nothing. Anyway, Rey Fenix. Currently under contract with AEW, and that's the problem. So this is the latest in a long line of contract disputes with AEW, specifically between wrestlers and promoters and Tony Khan. And as of recent, wrestlers have been taking to social media to air their grievances in an effort to get released. I'll give a WWE example. Mustafa Ali was going on Twitter a couple of years ago and basically just begging to be let out of his contract. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Brody Lee was trying this at one point as well before he left to go to AEW. Am I misremembering there?
He was one of the more outspoken ones about that Saudi flight where only the top 20 left and they were all stranded. He took to social media and just he used to use like something about Larry in his tweets or something, but he was kind of vocal about that whole thing, and then he eventually did go to AEW. Rest in peace, by the way. It's so crazy to think that guy's not here anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. With AEW in the contract, Ricky Starks, Danhausen, Miro, Rusev, and now Rey Fenix, among others, have been publicly complaining. I don't know if Miro has, but no, he did complain about... No, he has complained. Anyway, Fenix, along with his brother Penta, were in talks about heading to WWE this past August. They made it quite public that they were going to WWE and want to be signed. Now, Penta was near the end of his contract, but Fenix... They both signed at the same time, but Fenix was out with an injury for a long time. And he has now had his contract extended for injury time into the summer of 2025. Now, people like myself and a lot of people out there are reading this as punishment for openly wanting to go to WWE. And basically what Tony Khan seemingly is doing is keeping Penta at home and paying him just to either devalue him or to not get a bigger payday with WWE. There's more to add with this. But straight away, what are your opinions on the whole sort of keeping people signed who don't want to be there?
Well, that's super tough. In a way, this is kind of something where holdouts in the NFL or other sports, it can become news and talked about. So AEW and WWE, when this kind of stuff happens, to not embrace it in a way or have talking heads talking about it and then kind of breaking that fourth wall, I think that adds to the realism of what's going on within a character or company or anything. You can make chicken you know what in the chicken salad if you want, because it's there for you. You can maximize the talent in a way. I would tell Rey Fenix this. WWE, the formula that I see work a lot, in the old days at least, would be sometimes a tag team into a singles like the Hart Foundation and then Bret Hart. But I believe Penta going into WWE staggered from Rey Fenix going in. It's just an overarching kind of thing I'm thinking about. Establishing himself as a singles, getting into a storyline with maybe a group or a tag team that keeps beating them down. The summer of 2025, here comes Rey Fenix to help his brother out. So this can like literally work into a positive. And then Rey, right now, and the first mistake I see right here is going on Instagram Live and talking about it. I believe then the mystique. This is why I like the media scrums, which we're going to focus on. I really just dislike anything that kills the mystique of a wrestler, the character, the storyline, the angle. And here it's just people getting online to kind of complain. Ricky Starks has done interviews. I don't know why I'm being sat at home. What, you're friends with Cody and whatever else is going on, or Punk. The mystery's solved already, right? It's Tony Khan being petty. In other words, AEW, they don't say it much anymore, but how many times did AEW say, we're not going to be like WWE. We're going to be different. Equal pay for everybody. Health insurance. We're going to treat our talent well. And to his credit, Tony's an incredibly generous guy. So I'm not talking about the money. Rey Fenix is being paid for his misery. Ricky Starks is being paid for his misery. being paid very well from what I heard. So they're not starving, but they want out. And when I look at that, that's the toughest thing Tony Khan has to deal with. Not the wrestlers' egos, not the brawl out stuff, Punk and the EVPs, the growing number of people becoming dissatisfied. And what do you do to either satisfy them or cut them loose? Because this kind of stuff gets around the locker room. Everything gets around the locker room because telephone, tell a wrestler, or whatever way you want to put it. But there may be other people going, man, if I go to leave, what's Tony going to do to me? Maybe I should just peel back and not work as hard because if I get hurt, he's going to extend my contract when I want to leave. It fosters a whole lot of problems that may not be on the surface now, but they're coming. I don't have a good answer for this. Number one answer I would have, Penta's leaving. So you know what I would do? Try to make Rey Fenix as happy as possible right now. Now, he might put people over because he wants to go, but I would do something to make him figured in. Paul Heyman, once again, say what you will about Paul. I talked about Axel Rotten, how him and Axel did not get along. But Paul squeezed every bit of what he could out of Axel. He didn't bury him, but he used him to get the BW over, used him to get this guy over, this person. He used them, but he also used them to benefit the talent that was staying. So Ricky Starks, and this is all part of business. Guess what? The fans aren't going to remember. We're not living in a day and age anymore, guys, where, oh my God, he did a job. We have to knock 100,000 off his deal. Oh my God, he did it. The fans are smart enough to know they don't say he got jobbed out. They're going to say he didn't get used right. And I can't wait to see Rey Fenix get used correctly in WWE. And the best revenge for Rey Fenix and Ricky Starks right now, cash those checks, be professional, and shove it up Tony Khan's ass and AEW's ass when you're a major star in WWE. And guess what? Here's the chance you take. They may treat you even worse. You may never get out of NXT. It's a very subjective business. Somebody might look at you and say, what's so special about Penta and Rey Fenix? We got Andrade. We got this guy. We got Rey Mysterio. We got Dominic Mysterio. What's so special about these? It's like Vince used to say, and you can say, it's not a sensitive saying. It's not a politically correct saying, but Vince would be famous for saying, we already got one of those. What's so special about this one? That's the truth. Ricky Starks, what are you going to do? You're going to show up and dress like The Rock, which Edge kind of dressed you down literally for. What's your character going to be? What are you going to, you're going to wear the same sunglasses and be this? These are things they need to reinvent themselves before they even get there. So I went around the block or around the world with that, but I feel in a way bad for Tony, even though a lot of it, I would say more of his inaction has created this kind of toxicity in the locker room. And I skipped over Rusev or Miro. Miro's got a reputation for complaining. He may not go back to WWE, so maybe he wants to kind of make, you know what, into something positive. That's all I'm saying. And guess what? In this economy, people are struggling. People are losing their jobs. People are losing their homes. Things are getting rough out there. Nobody's going to feel sorry for any of you. So make what you can out of it. And that's from a guy, watch the episode. I'm sorry to interrupt you again.
No.
That's from a guy that didn't know what he had and didn't know the investment of TV time and money and all this stuff and didn't appreciate it, was too immature to know better and wasted maybe $1 million payoffs that I could have got if I did business correctly. No, there's no way of knowing, but just speaking from a person that did make these mistakes, cash those checks and make Tony love you once again, at least for now.
The perception of people wanting to leave is obviously a bad look. Now, that being said, I think the worst thing that Tony Khan could do is let these guys go out of their contract early, because that sort of all tells people, hey, if you're unhappy in this company, you could just, as you alluded to beforehand, you could just do a perfunctory job. You could just, you just do the basics and just not put the effort in, or refuse to do certain things, or just go on social media and complain. And well, if it worked for this guy, then it'll work for me. I can get out of my contract and do what I want to do. That's sort of the worst thing that Tony Khan could do, is let these guys go. But I also want to say, why not at least use them? Because it it's throwing good money after bad. You're basically you're paying someone six figures pretty much, I guess, to stay at home. You're draining your own bank account for no return. So as you said before, why don't you just bring them back and just work on Rampage or Collision? Put Bandido over, or who's that guy who constantly loses? The other luchador.
Stevie Richards.
No, oh, you never wore a mask, for goodness sake. No, who's
I know you talked about him. Good Lord, I forget his name. It's on the tip of my tongue, because you were like, "What is this guy doing?" Yeah, I remember you criticized Commando.
Commando, yeah. It's like he constantly loses, and then they put him in the Continental Classic because someone else got injured. And they're like, well,
we do live in a
world
where you fail upwards. We do live in a world where that happens.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, like, he never wins. And then they thought, well, let's just put him in the Continental Classic because he'll have great matches. I was like, all you're doing there is you're putting a loser in a supposedly prestigious tournament. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that what do you do with these guys? If you don't want to use them in a proper place, fine, but either get something out of your investment. You've got 180 people on the roster for starters. Get rid of 100.
Yeah, it's a great point. You know why? If Tony actually sat down with these talents one by one or together or whatever, one-on-one would be great. Very exhausting, but it would be great. If he explained to them, your deal's coming up at this time. We are going to use you. We're going to try to get you over to a certain level, but you're really going to put a lot of guys over on the way out. That's just a way to do business. We're not going to completely job you out or embarrass you. We want to make it to where if it doesn't work out there, we've set the table maybe for you to come back here where nobody is hurt either way, the company nor you. But you are going to put people on the last 4 to 6 months of your deal, put them over on the way out. Keep yourself healthy. We're not going to put you in any goofy positions or anything, because then Tony has to pay him and pay for the surgeries, so it protects both people. You don't think with that conversation that only an unreasonable talent that just wants to get their way like a spoiled brat would react negatively to that kind of meeting? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it sort of strikes me, as I've just written a note here, that they're both burning the same bridge at the same time. Tony's, yes, paying him, keeping him miserable. And we're going to talk more about Rey Fenix in a second, what he said. But Tony Khan isn't using these wrestlers how they want to be used, or he's basically ignoring them. So he's burning a bridge with them. And then someone like Rey Fenix, on the other hand, is publicly maligning Tony Khan and burning a bridge the other way. So that it's just a scorched earth policy all the way around. And as you said before, wrestling is a transient business. You go one place for a bit, you go another place, then you come back years later, and you keep that sort of professional relationship healthy. So the way you suggested would be the perfect way. Hey, you're not getting everything you want, but at least you're getting TV time. At least you're doing what you love, and you're still getting paid to do it.
Yeah, we promise not to embarrass you. And that goes against every wrestling promoter DNA. It's not embarrass, because it's very personal, but it's a business. But they take it personally when they choose to. This is where a JR is needed, not specifically. Although I wish he would take the job. You need somebody to negotiate the contracts as a talent relations president, vice president. I know Chris Daniels is in talent relations, but you need to empower somebody to handle the contracts. Tony handling the contracts and the creative, it's just a recipe for disaster. It's really like, how can you go from being the booker to now sitting down talking money with somebody, then going back to booking and talking to somebody about money as they're trying to get booked in a better position for more money? Say what you will about Vince and JR or whatever that good cop, bad cop thing was set up in WWE to protect Vince so people that can't get to him. There is somewhat of a benefit. Plus, how can you say it's weird that you're talking to Tony as if he's not there, but it's a different version of Tony as you're talking about Tony not using you correctly. Do you see the confusion?
Hmm.
It's very, very awkward. And Tony seems like a guy who doesn't like to have awkward conversations either.
I'm going to ask you the question first, but then I'm going to fill in the blank. So the question will be: is there a benefit to complaining publicly? But I'm going to give you some quotes. Phoenix addressed his current situation, saying, "quote We must wait," and stressing the importance of professionalism. Here's the quote. And it makes no sense anyway. There are many things that are not known, but also should not be talked about. We must wait. Professionalism first and foremost, folks. Keep in mind, he said that. We must not be the same as all those podcasts that go around spitting out what they should not be spit out. Never diminish our work. There are things that should always be respected, and many are forgetting everything that wrestling has given them. So it's a bit of a word soup there. But a couple more quotes. Phoenix on
Good
Instagram.
Lord, was he running for president this year? What a
Lord
word salad is this?
There had been a huge injustice. He had suggested basically that there was more to the story other than just being kept, his injury time being extended into the summer of 2025. And there's more to that story, he claims. And that he would further complain that, quote, no one stays in a place where they received inhumane treatment. And he also complained, I needed a doctor, and you, being Tony Khan and AEW, I guess, ignored me for months. Now, I also want to say this. WWE, they sort the doctors out, whereas AEW, and then they pay for the doctors, obviously, whereas in AEW, if there's an injury in the ring, that kind of thing, you source your own doctors, your own medical issue, expenses, and then AEW reimburse you for that. So, that being said, we can dive more into Rey Fenix, what he said, but is there a benefit to complaining publicly?
I want to comment on the doctor thing because it does have some validity, because Punk said that in the Ariel interview, that he paid for his surgery on the tricep, and in WWE it was kind of all set up for him. So that's something that's very strange, where AEW, when they started, said it was going to be the opposite way, right? There wasn't going to be
Well, they said health insurance and all that kind of thing, and then it just becomes the same as, I mean, didn't Extreme Rising that you worked for, they were claiming pensions and health insurance?
It was all the Charlie Brown teacher to me, because I've heard ever since that and Wrestlers Rescue, there's always something that's going to pop up to help the boys, and never help yourself. You're independent contractors, but you're actually employees. If you watch our recent clip, where you get about 18 of the 20 or whatever. Now with this, does it ever help to complain? It's hard to say. It works out for some. Once again, we're talking about maybe your value as a human being that complains, depending upon your push. But if you're getting a super push and you're getting paid well, are you complaining then? Maybe some pro wrestlers would, because, well, you put me in the main event, but I'm not the champion. There's always a way that wrestlers will complain and shoot themselves in the foot. I think it's more of the inhumane treatment is kind of interesting, because once again, AEW does not want to be known for that. And Tony Khan, we talked about on the Dutch Dave Meltzer story a little bit, and you've went into more detail on your channel in story time, so please check it out. Tony Khan might be the most humane person in wrestling. Not inhumane, but humane. I've never seen the level of humanity from a wrestling promoter for people that may never have worked for the company or he doesn't know. So that's weird. Inhumane treatment. Now, how should I say, be given the runaround, be going through red tape, having to do all the work yourself to find a doctor. That's not, that's very wrong. When you're under contract with a company that has actually direct ties to the NFL and their doctors and all that stuff, that's very, very strange. But I don't know if you go as far as inhumane without instances and facts to back that up. That's a pretty hefty allegation. Do you get that impression?
Yeah, but the other thing is that I'm pretty sure in the contract he signed, at some point, if you denigrate the company or Tony Khan or whatever in that vein too much or too specifically, that might be a suspendable offence without pay. And then when Tony decides to bring you out of suspension, that's when your injury time clause with the contract then starts up again. So when you say complaining publicly, this could be the absolute worst thing for him, because, well, I'm going to suspend you because you breached your contract. And then guess what? You're another year away from WWE where you want to be.
Yeah. There's also a thing to be said, too, about Rey Fenix killing his mystique This is hurting his character that potentially could go to WWE. And also, it's the old saying, if this person is saying this about that person, what happens when they're dealing with me? What do they say behind my back? So WWE might be looking at this going, is Rey Fenix going to be a problem? They might have 2 strikes against him before he even gets there, if he even gets there, because somebody might be like, no, we saw all that stuff. We don't want him. TKO and Endeavor are very, very careful about what goes on social media. So they don't want a loose cannon like this doing that. So I agree with you that this could hurt him a bunch of different, it's going to hurt him more than Tony Khan. Here's an idea, though. This is where Vince McMahon did the right thing, and Dixie Carter, in a little bit of a way, did the right thing. There was so much criticism, so many people turning on them, that they needed to turn heel. Do we see a heel authority Tony Khan in the future? Because if he does it right, that's the only way to save this. Or, bring back the Shane McMahon thing. If Tony turns into an owner that runs out of control and Shane McMahon is brought in by WBD to put AEW back on track, a little bit of reality there too. That could be a storyline that can make sense. Now Rey Fenix could go on the Shane McMahon side, or Miro. There could be a host of talents that go to the Shane side. Now they have a purpose, and Tony may not even have to deal with them on a creative level anymore. Just an idea.
I hope not, though. I mean, the whole Dixie thing was awful, and it's so played out.
Well,
it's
you know what it was?
It was wrestling trope 101.
I predicted she was going to put the world title on herself. That was my prediction. The indie promoter times 1,000. Come on, man. That's why I've been guessing for 5 years or more that Tony Khan is going to put the belt on himself, and I'm sticking to that prediction, staying with it.
Hey, it worked for Vince. But the thing is, Vince is just an outlier. Vince was, for all his faults as a person, the greatest heel in history.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you just happen to be the owner. You also just happen to be the greatest heel who ever lived.
And now we know why. And now we know why.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, well, turn it up to 11, baby. 3. Yeah, turn it up to 11. But yeah, Dixie was awful. Tony Khan's even worse as far as being an on-screen authority figure. It just, yeah. And it's just been done to death, and everyone does it. I mean, do you know what we're really missing is Jack Tunney. Just someone just to come out occasionally and be an old man and just be authoritative, and this is how it's going to be. And then just to advance the storyline and then get rid of him again for 3 months. That's all you need.
We need to do it for Patreon or here. In the Tunney
best
estate,
of Jack Tunney.
The Tunney estate is very careful, because I was thinking about making a Jack Tunney for president thing, and they shut it down right away. So they're very protective of his intellectual property. But we should do a reaction. One of my favorite segments, I'm trying to think. I think it's when Bobby Heenan brought out, it might have been on Brother Love's thing or something like that, brought out the World Heavyweight title. I don't think it was Brother Love wasn't around yet. But Tunney seemed to be feeling really, really good. And Bobby was showing him the belt. He's like, hey, give me that. And like, Tunney's like, it was such an awkward, like it was the most amount of like energy I've ever seen from Jack Tunney. But I used to love when he sit there and he goes, I do declare that this match will be a world heavyweight title match. As he's reading like back and forth, like the old WCW promos where he had to read the teleprompter like that.
And flub his lines constantly as well. WWF, I think the last time he was live, I might be wrong on this, was when Bret Hart and Yokozuna were signing a contract in like 93. And then the few times he was on TV after, we were all like pre-tapes. I think someone's going to show me up and tell me I'm wrong there, but
we got to, well, that's what this whole thing's about, us being proved wrong. So.
Yeah. Hey, I'm always happy to be proved wrong.